Hey, good morning, church. It's so good to be here together, to be able to worship God together in this place. And we're excited to just have another Sunday. Psalm 100 says this: "Shout with joy to the Lord, all the earth. Worship the Lord with gladness. Come before him singing with joy. Acknowledge that he is the Lord our God. He made us, and we are his. We are his people, the sheep of his pasture. Enter his gates with thanksgiving. Go into his courts with praise. Give thanks to him and praise his name. For the Lord is good. His unfailing love continues forever, and his faithfulness continues to each generation." This morning, we're going to worship that God who is the faithful God, the God of love, who keeps giving love to us. And we're going to sing about his love this morning. We're going to sing about his presence amongst us. We're going to sing about what he's done for us and the good things. And I love what that psalm says, that one generation declares it to another. And so I want to encourage you, as you're there in your room, declare these truths of God all throughout whoever's sitting there in the room with you, whether they're kids or your parents or your grandparents or whoever it is. One generation declare the praises of God to another. Let's stand and let's worship God together. True, that God's love awakens us this morning. I hope you were woken up by that. I hope that if you just rolled out of bed and starting church up, that woke you up and that we're ready to worship God together in this place. Hey, it's been a crazy week, hasn't it? I don't know about you, but every day that I've woken up and looked on Facebook or looked on the news, or it's just been a crazy week. And unrest, and I don't know about you if you feel unrest in your soul this morning. I don't know how you're coming into this morning, but I know that for many of us, it's just been a tough week seeing what's been happening around us. And I want to encourage us with Jesus' words. Jesus said, "Come to me, all you who are weary and heavy laden, and I will give you rest." If you've come in this morning and you just feel uneasy, if your soul feels unrest, I want to encourage you to come to Jesus this morning. Come to the one who makes a way for us when there doesn't seem to be any other way. The one who has it figured out. We certainly don't have it figured out, church. We don't know what's going on in our world or how to fix the brokenness around us. But let's come to Jesus because he can. He's the way maker. And he's going to do something incredible. He's going to do something incredible through this opportunity, through this time, through this season of unrest. He's going to make a way, but we got to come to him. So I want to encourage you this morning, come to Jesus. Take his yoke upon you, for he is the one who makes our burdens light. Let's worship again this morning.
stop working. You never stop, you never stop working. Even when I don't see it, you're working. Even when I don't feel it, you're working. You never stop, you never stop working. You never stop, you never stop working. Even when I don't see it, you're working. Even when I don't feel it, you're working. You never stop, you never stop working. You never stop, you never stop working. Waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. You are waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. Lord Jesus, you are the way maker. And I just pray that you would show us the way in this time of uncertainty and this time of unknown, that your wisdom would just be poured into our minds and our hearts, and that we would just rely on the Holy Spirit, God. Show us the way, God. You are the way and the truth and life. Thank you that we have a way, and it's you, God. Thank you for that. Yes, we pray. Amen.
You take a seat wherever you're at.
Hey, before we jump into the message this morning, I just want to encourage you to stick around all the way to the very end of the service after the last two songs, because I have a couple really important announcements about what reopening is going to look like and when that may be coming. So you're going to want to stick around for that. But right now, let's kick it back over to my house, and we're going to finish up our series, Home Sweet Home.
Good morning, church family. Welcome to our table. We are coming to you with the last in our series, Home Sweet Home, where we've been exploring lessons we can learn about the rhythms of life that God has for us right here at home. This morning, Joel and I are speaking to you together from our dining room table, as you can see, because we are both really excited to talk to you about something we're very passionate about, which is hospitality. So much so that we've actually recently redone our home around our value of hospitality. Where we're sitting right now used to be our living room, according to the floor plan of our house. And there's a little area in the floor plan for the dining room, but it was pretty small and kind of awkward. We weren't able to get a very big table in there, and we tried having families over, and it was hard to move around, hard to seat everyone. So we decided to revamp our living space and move all of our furniture out of the living room. And we bought this big table, was back in last August, and made it into a dining room. And since then, we have had the blessing of having many families over, sitting around this very table, sharing life together. It's just this is a really special place to us now. There's already memories here. And I would really say that this table is the heartbeat of our home. It's already been a great space for us to live out one of our core values as a family of showing hospitality.
So today we're going to look at this idea of hospitality in the Bible and really practically in our lives. And so we're going to kind of go over the what, why, who, and how of hospitality. And first of all, the what of hospitality. If you're taking notes or you have your app open, you can type that in, the what of hospitality. Before we can go further into this message, we need to understand, what is hospitality? What are we talking about when we say this word hospitality? Biblical hospitality at its very core, it was very core to the early church and what it meant to be a Jesus follower. In fact, we see in Romans chapter 12, Paul says this and gives us a glimpse into what hospitality is when he writes, "Love must be genuine, abhor what's evil, hold fast to what's good, love one another with brotherly affection, outdo one another in showing honor. Do not be slothful in zeal, but be fervent in spirit. Serve the Lord, rejoice in hope, be patient in tribulation, be constant in prayer. Contribute to the needs of the saints," and here it is, "and seek to show hospitality." Right away, we see from this passage that there's a genuineness to hospitality, that there must be a genuineness when it comes to this idea. But I think we have allowed biblical hospitality in our minds to be kind of hijacked by the idea of entertaining people, socially entertaining people. When we think of having people over, I think we've allowed the idea of entertaining people in our home to overshadow what true biblical hospitality is. And I think that there's a little bit of a difference there at the outset. It might seem like those things are kind of the same, hospitality and entertaining people, but really there's a difference, especially when it comes to the motivation. And I think when we understand the difference between what entertaining is and hospitality is, it really paints a picture of what holds us back often from hospitality because we think it is entertaining. Let me explain the difference. In her book, Entertaining, Martha Stewart says this: entertaining, like cooking, is a little selfish because it really involves pleasing yourself with a guest list that will come together into your ideal, into ideal of harmony, with a menu orchestrated to your home and to your taste, with decorations subject to your own eye. Given these consideration, it has to be pleasureful. Now, this paragraph hints at one of the main differences. The entertaining host seeks to elevate themselves. As Martha mentioned, it's a bit selfish. As guests arrive, the entertainer announces, "Here I am. Come into this beautiful home that I've spent time cleaning up and polishing and making sure everything's put in place, and partake of this wonderful meal that I've put forth for you. And I hope that you feel fortunate to be part of what I've put together for this evening." And then you leave. Right? So it's this come in, I'll entertain you for a while, and then you leave. And so at its very core, entertaining becomes a little bit selfish. Now, I know that's an exaggeration, and I don't think that we ever think that as we do it, but I think whether we say it or not, whether we like to admit it or not, sometimes it comes out in the way that we stress over the details of having people over, or maybe we don't have people over because, man, we have to figure everything out, or everything has to be perfect before we could ever invite somebody into our home. And if that's your thought process, you've allowed the idea of entertaining to take over. Hospitality is so much different. Biblical hospitality offers our best to Jesus first, and then to our guests, and then it thinks of self last. It transforms our selfish motives and elevates our guests. When the hospitable host swings open the door, all of our attention goes outward. It's this idea of, "You're here. We've been waiting for you. Come be part of life with us. Nothing is more important to me than you right now coming in and experiencing life with us." It's the posture of humility that bends low and graciously offers our home and whatever it is that we have to others first. That there's no interruptions and that they haven't interrupted your life at all. We don't need to worry in hospitality about what we say or act. It's just this idea of you come as you are and we'll be who we are. And in that, we can experience life together. It's not status seeking, it's servanthood. It's not here am I, it's here are you. It's not self-serving. It's simply there to serve others. Over and over, I'm reminded that the blueprint for real hospitality is nothing more than setting our priorities aside and loving other people. We need to turn from this mindset of entertaining people to a mindset of hospitality.
The second point is, why is hospitality important? So we've seen what it is, but why is it so important? And we can clearly see that a mindset and lifestyle of hospitality are both commanded and commended all throughout Scripture. If we look at the Old Testament, hospitality was a huge part of Jewish culture, and it was even codified in the laws that God gave the Jewish nation. If we fast forward to Jesus' life, we find that hospitality was an integral part of how Jesus did ministry. Many of the life-changing encounters we read about that people had with Jesus occurred in a home over a meal. And Jesus didn't decline invitations even from the most stuffy, power-hungry religious leaders, or even from socially unacceptable sinners who just knew how to throw a really good party. Sometimes Jesus even invited himself over. So he wasn't shy about hospitality. Then as we read about the kingdom of God first taking root in Jerusalem, we can see that hospitality was a huge part of the church's DNA from the very beginning. We read this in Acts 2:45 through 46. And they were selling their possessions and belongings and distributing the proceeds to all as any had need. And day by day, attending the temple together and breaking bread in their homes, they received their food with glad and generous hearts. See, the early believers weren't content with blasé, surface-level relationships with each other because, as it says in that verse, their hearts were filled with the gladness and generosity of the Holy Spirit. When God fills your heart with gladness and generosity, hospitality is the natural outpouring of that. And I think it's safe to say that if the church would have been satisfied with just saying hello to each other, asking each other how you're doing once a week at the temple, and that was the extent of their relationship, the gospel message would have died in Jerusalem. It never would have gone out to fill the whole world. But as we continue to read in Acts, we see story after story of lives being transformed by the gospel in homes, over tables, through the vehicle of hospitality. Believers coming together in unity and blessing each other. Non-believers opening their homes to missionaries of the gospel. Believers inviting non-believers in. So much hospitality was going on as the church was exploding with growth in the book of Acts. One author wrote, "Hospitality is the means by which we imitate an infinitely hospitable God." In other words, since our God is a hospitable God, the more we become like him, the more hospitable we will be. It's not just a gift that some people have, and then if you don't have the gift, you're off the hook. Instead, it's a benchmark of spiritual growth. It's the evidence of the gladness and generosity of the Spirit in your life. It's a skill that we need to develop rather than just a gift you have or not. And it's also a very beautiful way that we can bear the image of God. Like it says in Ephesians 5:1, "Be imitators of God as beloved children." Also in 2 Corinthians 5:20, it says that we are ambassadors for Christ. So if we're really ambassadors for Christ, then our homes are kind of like embassies or outposts of the kingdom of God. Our homes are places we can show and share the generosity, the language, and the culture of heaven.
Yeah, it's so important. The third point is who should we invite? Now that we've gone over the what and the why of hospitality, which is really the heartbeat of hospitality, let's get into more of the details of hospitality. Namely, in this point, who should I invite over? I think we all find it pretty easy to invite over our best friends or the people that we get along with or that it's easy to talk to. It's just, the people you click with and it's just easy. That's really easy to invite those people over. But is that really what biblical hospitality is? Now, there's certainly nothing wrong with having your best friends over, the people that you get along with over, and the fact that's great. But I don't think that biblical hospitality stops there. And really, let's be honest, we were already going to be spending time with those people anyway. And so really that's the easy part. God has so much more in mind for us than taking the easy road always when it comes to hospitality. We certainly see in the book of Acts, as Beth mentioned and read just a little bit ago, that hospitality should happen within believers. inviting other believers into your home, fellowshipping with them. We do that often. We have people over into our homes that are from church, and we love spending time with them, having them around the table, getting to know them better. And that's important. There's an important element of that. It was a trademark of the first century church, and it's a value of our church. We value being a united family. It's one of our values. And so to be a united family, it's important that we have people over into our homes and into our spaces from church.
Absolutely.
But when we look at biblical hospitality, it also means spending time with non-believers or people you don't know well yet. In fact, the Greek word for hospitality really literally means friend of strangers. Friend of strangers. Like Beth said, it's deeply rooted within Jewish culture, and it was practiced by all. The writer of Hebrews says it this way in Hebrews 13. He says, keep on loving one another as brothers and sisters. Do not forget to show hospitality to strangers, for by doing so, some people have shown hospitality to angels without even knowing it. So as we can see in this passage, it says, hey, keep loving on your brothers and sisters. Don't stop doing that. But he says, don't forget to also show hospitality or inviting over people into your home that are strangers, or maybe we could say, because I know that for some people, when we hear that stranger, we think stranger danger, right? Are we going to just pick up somebody random on the road and bring them into our home? And is that even safe? And so some of us push back on that idea of strangers, but maybe when we hear that word strangers, we should think of just people we don't know really well yet. People that maybe we know of, or we're kind of socially friends with out and do things with, or they're part of our kids' sports teams, or we work out with them, but we don't have we don't know them really well. Maybe that's what we should think of when we hear that word stranger. Whether they're believers or non-believers, we don't know everybody. And so when it comes to this idea, I think the idea that the writer of Hebrews was getting at is have people in your home that you don't know really well yet and get to know them. So important was this that Jesus says in Matthew 25 that at the end of time, Jesus says he's going to come in judgment. And one of the things he's going to say this, for I was hungry and you gave me something to eat. I was thirsty and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger and you invited me in. I needed clothes and you clothed me. I was sick and you looked after me. I was in prison and you came to visit me. It says, then the righteous will answer him, Lord, when did we see you hungry and feed you, or thirsty and give you something to drink? When did we see you a stranger and invite you in, or need clothes and clothe you? When did we see you sick or in prison and go and visit you? The king will reply, truly I tell you, whatever you did for one of the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you did for me. Jesus' point was the same or even amplified than what the writer of Hebrews said. He said, when it comes to this, when it comes to hospitality, we need to be about inviting not just the people that we're comfortable with always into our homes, but we need to invite people who are different than us, who are strangers to us, that we don't know. It's the core of what being a Jesus follower is about. Let me assure you, friends, though, there is something about sitting around a table with people, even people you don't know well yet or may come in as strangers, but as you share a meal and life together, share stories together, those people don't leave strangers, they leave as friends.
Yeah.
And we've experienced that so often.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to challenge you when it comes to inviting people, don't just go with people who you know really well. Live out this biblical definition of hospitality in befriending or welcoming strangers or people you don't know well yet. The other group of people I want to challenge us to have into our homes and to be hospitable to is people that you don't fully agree with.
Whew.
People that these can be either believers or non-believers, but in either case, they're people that you don't necessarily fully agree with them, maybe in their lifestyle or the way that they live their life. They may be way different than you in their personality. They may have different worldviews than you, political views than you, or even spiritual views than you. And we need to begin sitting around the table with people and sharing meals with people who are different than us and listening to them share their stories and their heartbeat and why they believe the way they do. Now I'm going to get a little bit real right now. I'm going to press a little bit into this right now, especially in the context of thinking about what's been going on in our world this week and what's happening around us. I think we need a whole lot less posting our positions on social media and a whole lot more sitting around tables with people and sharing life and sharing our ideas with people around the table. We need real conversations about what's threatening to divide our country, not posting our positions on Facebook. We need a whole lot less social media posturing and a whole lot more real life hospitality. We don't all have to agree with one another. The people that you sit around your table with, you don't have to agree with them. But we are commanded in Scripture to love one another deeply from the heart. And there's no exception clause for people that you don't agree with, their political views or how they live their life or their ideas about justice or race or whatever it is that you may disagree with them. There's no exception clause in there when it says love one another deeply from the heart. And part of loving people that you would disagree with is being willing to listen to them share their heart, and you being willing to share your heart in humility and coming around a table. And that's done best in a loving environment of hospitality. When we do this, we emulate Jesus, because this is exactly what Jesus did. Jesus would go to homes, like Beth said, he would go to these homes, but he would constantly go to homes of people who he didn't necessarily agree with their lifestyle, their choices, or their political positions. But that didn't stop him. In fact, Jesus invited very drastically different personalities and political viewpoints and pass into his inner circle of guys that followed him around for 3 years. Those became the 12 disciples that we know. He invited fishermen. He invited tax collectors who probably or possibly at one point ripped off those fishermen. At one point, he invited a Jewish zealot who hated the Romans, who hated tax collectors. He invited different personalities, very outgoing people, very introverted people, people with different ideas about life. He invited them all to be part of his inner 12 guys. And I'm sure that they didn't always agree with each other. In fact, we know they didn't always agree with one another. And sometimes they didn't see eye to eye, but that didn't stop them from following Jesus together. And eventually they grew to become friends and ministry partners. And then they learned to love one another, and they went on to change the world. I want to challenge you to not just invite your friends or those who you know that you agree with over, but I want you to stretch yourself to grow into inviting people over who you don't necessarily agree with, and begin loving them the way Jesus does. Next time you want to argue with somebody's position on social media, I want to challenge you, don't argue with them on social media. Invite them to your home and sit around a table and discuss it there, because so much more will happen there than you arguing with them on social media or on Facebook. And as we do that, we show God's heart for hospitality. So as you can see, when it comes to who we show hospitality to, who is it that we should show it to? Whoever God brings in your path, believer or non-believer, people you know really well or people you don't know yet at all, strangers, people you agree with and people that you don't necessarily agree with. All should be welcome at your table. And in so doing, we become more like Jesus.
So now we've looked at what is hospitality, why hospitality is so important, and who we should show hospitality to. But this is one of those things that we can sometimes just give mental assent to. Yes, absolutely, it's very important. We should show hospitality to everyone. But we need to make it practical. We need to address, how do we actually do this? How do we put this into action? So that brings us to our final and fourth point, which is, how do we actually practice hospitality? How do we make this practical? And if you aren't actively practicing hospitality right now, maybe if you're hesitating to do that, it's probably not because you're arguing why it's important, but really, I think the main reason why a lot of us hesitate to put this into practice is that, especially we as women, can get so caught up in worrying about the details that we can easily talk ourselves out of it. And maybe your inner conversation goes something like this. What if my home's not good enough and they judge my cleaning skills? What if they don't like my cooking? What if they have a gluten sensitivity I didn't know about? Yikes. What if, heaven forbid, we run out of things to talk about and the conversation gets super awkward and there's awkward silences? What if I just don't like people at all? Well, good luck. I don't know. I'll pray for you, I guess. I'm not sure. But really, I think the problem is we get so caught up in the what ifs that the devil really is in the details, so to speak. The enemy keeps us from living that arms wide open, hospitable life that God has called us to live because we're waiting for things to be perfect. He's keeping us from the joy that we would receive by pouring our lives out for believers and lost people because we're so wrapped up in the what ifs. The bottom line is hospitality is risky. All of those horrible what ifs could and probably will happen at some point. Your chicken could be salty and dry. Your conversation could be awkward. Your toddler could blurt out embarrassing and impolite things or run out of the bathroom with no pants on. All of these things have literally happened to us at some
Sure
point.
have.
But what if we turned all of our what ifs on their head and we took a risk and invited people over who didn't know Jesus? And what if we listened to their story? Just like we talked about a couple weeks ago about telling our stories and listening to other people's stories. And what if when we listened to their story and they heard ours, it opened up a door for us to share the gospel with them? And what if they listened to the gospel and accepted it? And what if they became citizens in the kingdom of heaven and gained the promise of eternal life? What if? That would be so amazing. And what if we invited believers over who we didn't know well and they ended up becoming some of our dearest friends? And what if we invited people over who were hurting and struggling and we were able to encourage them and we gave them the love they needed to just have some hope to keep going? What if? What if we invited strangers over and they ended up being angels? What if? When you take the risk of hospitality, any number of wonderful things can happen. The reward is so much greater than the risk. So don't let the details keep you from just doing it. Some things you just have to dive in and do it and see what happens. And sometimes you have to ask yourself, okay, what's the worst thing that could happen? The evening could bum out, my guests could be bored, they could leave early. Well, try again next time. Don't give up. Chances are most people who come to your home are not worrying so much about what your house looks like as they might be about what you're going to think of them. That's just the way people are. So once people feel your love, all of those other details really aren't going to matter. And when it comes to the whole aspect of like making a meal for people, I know that can be kind of intimidating, especially if you're cooking for somebody that you don't know very well. I always try to ask a family, if we don't know them well, if they have any food sensitivities in their family so that I can be aware of that when I'm planning the meal. And I generally pick a tried and true recipe I've already made several times. I know that it's going to be good. And I try to do something easy. I'm not going to make something gourmet with a million courses because I don't want to stress out about that part, because that, as we've said so many times, is not really what hospitality is all about. But if cooking for people is really just puts you over the top, like it's just too stressful, here's here's a little idea, and it's just between you and me. Get some takeout, put it in your own dishes, and put it in the oven. And then when your guests come over, just nonchalantly pull it out of the oven like you made it yourself. They'll never know.
You're such a cheater.
I've never done that. Maybe I have. You never know. See? It works. So most importantly, though, when I invite people over, I try to remind myself of the story of Mary and Martha in Luke 10:38 through 42. You probably know it's a very common story. But to recap, Jesus went to visit his friends, Mary and Martha and Lazarus. And it says that Martha welcomed him into her home. It was Martha who welcomed him. And that right there just stops me with like, whoa, what would it be like to welcome Jesus into our home? Man. So the problem is, though, the crazy part is, Mary, her sister, proceeds to sit down and listen to him talk and just is absorbing and hanging on his every word. And Martha scoots off to the kitchen and gets busy stressing out over all of the meal and all of the details. So then she's mad at Mary because Mary's not helping. So she comes back and says, Mary, or Jesus, tell my sister she needs to help me. And this is what Jesus says, and this is so perfect. He says, Martha, Martha, you are anxious and troubled about many things, but one thing is necessary. Mary has chosen the good part, and that will not be taken away from her. Now, I really hope that if Jesus actually came to our home, I'd be more like Mary, and I'd just sit as close to him as I could and soak up every word. I wouldn't want to miss a moment. I'm sure you feel the same way. Maybe instead of even cooking, I'd just go to a place Jesus really likes, like Olive Garden.
Do you think Jesus ate at Olive Garden?
Well, he prayed there a lot. Sorry, I thought it was clever. I'm trying to make the preacher laugh over here. But I really hope I wouldn't be in the kitchen stressing out, trying to make things perfect, being, like Jesus said, anxious and troubled about many things. And I think the emphasis there is on things. The things of hospitality are really not the point. Jesus said, one thing is necessary. And the one thing Jesus was talking about is not the perfect place settings. It's not a perfectly spiced plum pate.
I've never had that.
I don't actually think that's a real thing.
Doesn't sound good.
It doesn't at all, actually. But what Jesus was talking about is the one thing that's necessary for hospitality is people. People being together.
Yeah.
And I think that most people, including myself, would rather have the gift of a listening ear and an open heart, open arms rather than folded arms, than all those other details. And maybe you aren't even in a place right now where you have the other things to offer. That's okay. You can still be hospitable. There's a way to be hospitable. Maybe you need to rearrange your life or your time or your home to be more accommodating. We had to rearrange our home for it. But even if you aren't in a season or a space where you feel like you could invite many people, could you invite one person? Could you maybe invite two people? If your home is totally out of the question, you can still live a hospitable life by inviting someone to meet you somewhere else, maybe to go for a walk with you, maybe go get some takeout and sit in the park and talk. Don't let the lack of what you have to offer keep you from offering whatever it is you have. And Joel has a really cool story about that from Ethiopia. Would you share that?
Yeah, I've been to Ethiopia 3 times now, and every time it's just the people there. The Ethiopian people are such hospitable people. I love their culture in this, is that they welcome you in with such open arms, and they're so excited, and they have that mentality like we talked earlier. You're here, come be part of us. And I felt so welcomed every time walking into that culture. And even in opportunities we've had to go visit in the homes of some of the girls in the Keziah House, or graduates of the Keziah House and the ministry of Isaac C that we support. And we walk into their homes, and friends, I say homes, not houses, because maybe it's the size of like half of our dining room is their entire home.
Wow.
And they don't have a lot, but what they have is just they're proud of and they want you to experience. And we come in and they offer you coffee and they offer you whatever it is they have. And then they're willing to just share their life. They're willing to share their stories. They're willing to just have you be a part of their life. And they're so excited to do that. And even though they don't have a lot physically, what I leave with every time I walk away from Ethiopia or fly back home is just, man, I felt so welcomed and loved and accepted and just like they just brought us into what they were doing. And it's a beautiful picture of a culture of hospitality. And it's one that I think we could learn from.
That's what we definitely need more of.
Right. And so this week, as we've gone along, you've heard us challenge you throughout this, and I hope, and I guarantee that that you've been challenged in some way. I've been challenged even as we have made this an emphasis of our home and hospitality as a value of our family. Even just coming back to seeing what God's word says about, I've been re-challenged this week to even be more hospitable, or to see how we can move away from the idea of entertaining to the idea of true hospitality. Because guys, just I know Beth addressed for the ladies just the details about the home, but even sometimes I feel the pressure of like, well, I'm having people over, I got to mow the lawn and I got to make sure everything's the front area is all swept off. And sometimes I even get to the point where like, man, we got to do all these things because, man, if we don't, what would people think of us? And so moving away from that mentality. And again, we're not saying anything's wrong with wanting to clean up your house or mow your yard or
Probably a good idea.
Yeah, every once in a while. Take care of things that there's nothing wrong with that. But if that's holding you back from being hospitable, there is something wrong with that. And so we want to challenge you this week. I want to ask you to begin to pray and seek out people this week that you can show hospitality to. And we believe that if you begin praying for those people, God will begin showing you or bringing to mind people that you can show. Often we just kind of pray for who God wants us to invite over, and God brings people to mind every time, and we're able to reach out. Maybe it's even beginning to ask God today who you can invite over next Sunday to experience church together with, and then text them or call them or see if they want to come over to your home, or accept an invitation from someone to go to their home for church and fellowship next week. I think as a whole church, if everybody's seeking to be hospitable, you're going to begin getting calls to go over to other people's house. Accept those invitations. Go over and experience life.
Ooh, maybe
together.
Be like Jesus and invite yourself over.
Yeah.
That'd be risky.
As we turn this morning to communion, we recognize again the heartbeat for hospitality really is the love of God in our lives and his love and hospitality towards us. Romans 5:8 says this, "But God showed his love for us that while we were still sinners, Christ died for us." While we were still sinners, while we were still strangers, far off from God, Christ gave the ultimate invitation by dying on the cross so that whoever accepts the invitation could be welcomed in as a friend of God, more than that, a family member of God, as sons and daughters of the King into the kingdom of God. What an invitation that is. And it was made possible only through Jesus. So today, like we do every week, we take time to thank him and remember the sacrifice that he made so that this kind of invitation would be possible. So today, since we're sitting at our table, we've come to the table of communion as well. And so we're going to take, and wherever you're at, if you have the elements of communion, we're going to just take this together today. We're going to take a piece of bread, which represents Jesus' body that he gave on the cross so that in dying, he could extend that invitation to us so that if we accept it, we can have life in him. So we take this bread and we partake, remembering Jesus' body that he gave on the cross. And we take a cup of juice. that represents Jesus' blood that he shed on the cross for our forgiveness of sins. The blood that he gave so that we could not have to experience death, so that we could not have to experience life apart from him. We take this juice, this representation of his blood, and we partake together. And while we do that, we are just thankful for Jesus. Beth, would you close us in prayer?
Father, thank you for being such a hospitable God. Thank you that when we were far away, you called us and you drew us in and you welcomed us at our table, at your table with you. Thank you that you wanted to know us, that you wanted to be friends with us. Thank you, Jesus, that you were willing to pay the ultimate price in order to make that possible, in order to make reconciliation with your Father and citizenship in your kingdom a reality for us. There's nothing we can do to earn that invitation. There's nothing we can do to make ourselves good enough for you. We want to recognize right now that all of this is from you and for you. And we pray that you would take the little lunch that we have, the little that we have to offer, our small home, our table, our time, our love, our open hands, and that you would use them to extend that invitation to the world around us, that you would use us and our hospitable hearts to build unity in your church, that your people can be truly one-minded, truly filled with love for each other and devotion and honor for each other. And that love would just infiltrate our world and draw many, many lost people who are right now sitting in darkness to your marvelous light. Your hospitality reached out to us, and I pray that through us, your hospitality would reach to all of the people that you've put around us in our lives, to our neighbors, to strangers, to people who are far different from us, to people who look different from us, who have different backgrounds than us, to other believers that we aren't really unified or connected with, that hospitality would cause those bonds of love to grow and would make open doors and open pathways for your gospel. Lord, our world, we see this more than ever right now. It's so glaringly apparent that our world needs the gospel so badly. And I pray that from our little congregation, from River Hills Church, and from your people all over this country and this world, the hospitable love that you've shown us would draw people in and just cause a revival in our world, Lord. We're offering ourselves to you, and we're asking you to use us as your hands and feet in love for all the people that you bring us to. We pray this in the name of your beautiful Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
We're going to sing a couple more songs. I hope you join us in singing, and that really, as we sing, we think about what we talked about, and you begin just processing what it looks like for you to be like God and be hospitable.
Darkness, silence every lie. No other voice will find me. I belong to you. I belong to you. Well, you called me out of darkness. You silence every lie, and no other voice will define me. I belong to you. I belong to you. You know the enemy can't take what I have, change who I am. I belong to you. You know the enemy can't take what I have, change who I am. I belong to you. By your blood I've been adopted, taking on your name, and I need to be reminded that I belong to you. I belong to you. The enemy can't take what I have, change who I am. I belong to you. You know the enemy can't take what I have, change who I am. I belong to you. Greater are you who's in me than he who's in the world. The words you have spoken are stronger than the curse. Greater are you who's in me than he who's in the world. The words you have spoken are stronger than the curse. Stronger than the curse. You know the enemy can't take what I have, change who I am. I belong to you. No, the enemy can't take what I have, change who I am. I belong to you. I belong to you. I belong to you. And no one can take from me my destiny. I belong to you. Your hands on this, you make preciousness from dust. Please don't stop creating me. Your blood offers the chance to rewind to innocence, reborn, perfect as a child. Oh, your cross, it changes everything. There my world begins again with you. And oh, your cross is where my hope restarts. A second chance is heaven's heart. ocean's kiss, beauty awakens by romance. Always inside this mess, I have found forgiveness, mercy, as infinite as you. Know your cross, it changes everything. There my world begins again with you. Know your cross is where my hope restarts. A second chance is heaven's heart. Countless second chances we've been given at the cross. Countless second chances we've been given at the cross. Fragments of brokenness, salvaged by the art of grace. You craft life from my mistakes. Black skies of my regrets, outshone by this kindness. New life, it dawns over my soul. Know your cross, it changes everything. There my world begins again with you. Oh, your cross is where my hope restarts. A second chance is heaven's heart. Let's sing countless, church. Countless second chances we've been given at the cross. So declare it together. Countless second chances we've been given at the cross. One more time, countless second chances we've been given at the cross. Countless second chances we've been given at the cross. Oh, thank you, Lord, for that. Thank you that you've given us so many chances. Thank you that you are the God who's brought grace into the midst of our brokenness. And every time we've been broken, God, you've brought grace into the middle of it. And so we continue to plead for that now. That in the midst of our brokenness, the midst of our broken lives individually, the midst of the brokenness of our communities and our nation and our world, would you just pour forth your grace, and that all may see you clearly as you show your grace through the second chances you give us at the cross. We pray these things in the powerful name of Jesus. Amen. Would you take a seat, and we have a couple more announcements for you.
Well, I hope that service really inspired you to want to reach out to people around you, invite them in. Hey, as we've said, as I said earlier, I got a couple of announcements. I met with the elders yesterday, and we really started talking about what it looks like when we're going to start meeting again. And what we want to say is that although we don't have an exact date nailed down, stick it on the calendar, bank on it yet, I want to let you know that that's coming sooner rather than later. And I know that right now there's so many vague statements, but we do want to just encourage you, or just give you courage by saying it is coming sooner rather than later. But we have some things to do in order to get ready. And so if you're willing to help serve, we need your help. And would you reach out to us and let us know? We're also going to be sending out tomorrow a text or email, or it'll come through one of the elders to you. And what we need to know is whether you and your family are comfortable coming back to church and meeting here in person when we do begin to gather here soon. And we want to let you know that if you are not comfortable yet with that, if you would rather not, the live stream will continue, and we will have our services live streamed into the future. And so if you're not comfortable with that yet, we want to tell you that we love you and we respect you, and we don't think of you as any less if you're not comfortable yet. We understand that people are at different spots, but we do also want to start providing very soon the opportunity to gather back together. And that will likely, when we get back together, that will likely look like 2 services at the beginning. One we will have no child care provided at, and the second one we will have child care provided at. And so we're still working on some of the details of that, but that's kind of the picture that we're looking at. We're going to have 2 services, one without childcare and one with childcare. And we are going to need teams of people to do some disinfecting in between services, and after the second service we're going to need people to help serve at those things. So if as you get your email or text tomorrow, would you please respond to that text back to the elder that sent it to you? And we really just need to hear back from people to see where people are at and what to know, what to expect from everybody as we start gathering back together. If you're thinking about this and on the fence and I don't know if I'd come back or not, just a couple quick things that you'll need to know. We will not be requiring people to wear masks. If you would like to wear a mask, we certainly welcome you to wear a mask, but we will not be, as a church, requiring people to wear masks. It will be up to the personal preference. Again, we'll have 2 services, one with childcare and one without. And so if you have children, you could still come to the first one, but you will be required to have them in the service with you. But there will be childcare at the second service. And those are just some of the kind of the basics that we're thinking of right now. And there's going to be other things that come up and other things that we're trying to put in place so that everybody, we can meet back together and it will be safe. But those are some of the preliminary thoughts we have, and we just really need some communication back. So we'll send out texts or emails tomorrow, and would you please do your best to respond to those quickly so we can get a picture of who's ready to come back and who's ready not to. Again, I want to reiterate, we will be having a live stream of our service going into the future. So if you're not comfortable yet with coming back, we love you and we really don't think any less of you. We just need to know who's in, who wants to come, who's ready to come back, and who's not. So I'm excited. I'm excited that we have something right ahead of us that we're looking forward to, something sooner rather than later. And I look forward to when we can get together in person at the church and worship together. But next Sunday, plan on being back here online at 10 a.m. to experience church together. And I'll see you then.